So we fast forward a few days to Maundy Thursday. What's happened in between is this melting pot of people arriving in Jerusalem for the Passover festival, of Jesus going into the temple courts and teaching, and also having conflict with particularly the religious leaders. Some people being for Jesus, other people being against him. I imagine crowds and chaos and it being difficult to think. And then in the evening, Jesus withdraws to the Mount of Olives and to Bethany to spend time in prayer with his Father and to spend time with his close friends who look out for him. This is then when the story begins to accelerate. We've just read the bit at the beginning of Luke chapter 22 where Judas agrees to betray Jesus, and he starts to look out for an opportunity of being able to hand over Jesus to those who are against him. But when there isn't a crowd around to create a fuss or to make a riot happen. Maybe that's important for the detail of when Jesus says that it's time for the unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb has to be sacrificed to be the centre of the feast that they are going to celebrate together. The fact that Jesus describes the Passover lamb being sacrificed as central to what they're going to celebrate just puts in their minds the idea that he's talking about himself. Or maybe they misunderstand and they cannot hear it. He says something slightly interesting. He says, go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover. He sends off just Peter and John, two of his inner circle of three. And they say, well, where do you want us to prepare? They're kind of homeless wanderers, having made their way to Jerusalem with apparently no plan of where to stay. And Jesus says, as you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters, and say to the owner of the house, the teacher asks, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? He will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there. Just like the incident with the donkey and the colt, Jesus just sends people off to find them and finds that everything has been arranged. Is this a miracle, or has Jesus made some arrangement the last time they were in Jerusalem for the Passover or whatever? I don't think it matters. In the same way as the detail about finding the man carrying the water, so much can be read into that so easily because of the detail that's given, which could be a distraction. Now, it's true that basically women carried water in that way. Men might have carried water, but they would have carried it in a skin bag, and not in the way that this man is described. Some people have said, well, maybe this was an Essene, because the Essenes who came into the city for the Passover had very few women amongst their number, and so maybe a man was carrying the water. I think this is usual enough for it to be just an ordinary unnamed person walking through the crowd, and unusual enough in a man carrying water in this particular way for Peter and John to definitely be certain about the person they're meant to follow. What it really tells us is that Jesus is still completely in control of the whole situation. For all the melting pot, for all the chaos that may be around him, for all the fact that he's working up to the point where he's going to be arrested, and he understands that and maybe they don't. For all of that, Jesus is still in complete control of the situation, following the Father's will and going through the things that he knows he must do. An important part of that will be all the details that surround the Passover meal. And what he's doing is making a quiet, out-of-the-way, special moment for him and his disciples, for some teaching, for some extraordinary moments, and from some really hard truths that are played out in this upper room. But the preparation that he has made for important and at the same time difficult conversations is clear. There is a moment to make the right preparations for the right moment, to take your time doing it, to do it very deliberately, and to make every detail count. To me, the important detail about Peter and John following the man is that it means that Judas cannot arrange for the chief priest to come and find them in this quiet place, because he will not know where this mysterious upper room is. He's going to have to do it in the Garden of Gethsemane instead. And that is what Jesus plans all along.